Today is a very special day. Every day is a special day. Did you hear me say that before? Every day is a special day. If you make it special, and if you do that every day, you will live a special life. Say hi.
Hi.
Big one.
Hi.
And we want to give a big, warm welcome to our guest speaker today. John, he will take us into Italy.
Hello. I want to start off by saying that I tried to keep this as short as possible just to allow for room for discussion, so ask a lot of questions. Okay. The study abroad. This was a study abroad experience, and in the summer of 2015, I went with Dr. Melton as a faculty-led study abroad to Florence, Italy. There were two courses being taught. One was through Eastern, one was through Florence University of the Arts, which was in Italy. And that course covered Italian history, culture, architecture, and technology, both from the past and the present. And then with Eastern, we went over Italian technology and the automobile industry specifically. Italy is the birthplace of the Renaissance, and our group was able to see the history of technology up close and personal. Here's some pictures of the trip. Okay, and each of these pictures is just a topic of discussion. If you have a question or want to know what it is, go ahead. So this is just showing some of the architecture that was in Florence that I was around every day. And you have to realize, like, most of these buildings were built hundreds of years ago. The one on your right there, I believe it was the 13th or 14th century, and it's just like such an iconic building today. Don't quote me on that, go look it up. Here, it's just the feeling. This was Italy for me. Every morning, every afternoon, we'd be on these bridges and looking over. This is the Arno, that's the river's name, and we'd watch the sunrise or set, and it's just like starting a day and starting a night in a nice setting. This is Laocoon and his Sons. It's a Greek sculpture. It's really old, and it was, I believe it was excavated in the 15th century by the Romans, and it's in the Vatican Museum. The reason I put this picture in here is because I studied a lot of humanities and art courses, and I always saw this statue being studied and analyzed, and so it was, for me, it was a really powerful thing to see it up close and personal, and be able to relate it. You know, I've seen this in books, but now I'm seeing it in real life, and so I enjoyed that. Also in Rome, we went to the top, and this is just a picture of Rome. There's some mountains in the background. That it was an amazing experience just to be up there. Again, the Colosseum. Most of you probably know what this is. Okay, I want to ask you, I'm going to have you wave at me. Wave at me if you've eaten horse meat. Okay, I see no one. In Italy, it isn't uncommon to eat horse, and I know there are other places that eat horse as well. So this shredded salad on the right side here is actually horse meat, and for me, it was a cultural experience to be able to, you see that on the menu, and you're just like, you know, I have to try it. I mean, what does horse taste like? You kind of feel bad about yourself afterwards, but it was decent. Kind of tasted like imitation bacon bits, if you've ever had those. Then we have more architecture. Again, I'm just showing the architecture portion of the course. So we visited this, took a day trip to Pisa, and got to see the Leaning Tower. It was, again, really cool to see something that you see on postcards and in textbooks up close. We were actually able to climb it, and let me tell you, it feels a whole lot more so whenever you're in there. You feel like you're going to fall over, and it's actually kind of scary. But okay, Lamborghini. Most of you, I'm sure, know of Lamborghini, and it is an Italian car manufacturer. So while we were there, we were able to go to the museum and the manufacturing facilities there. And it was pretty cool. Venice. Here, the fun thing about Venice is that there are no roadways. It's all canals and boats. I mean, most of you already know this, but again, it's just like a cultural thing that it's interesting. The David, again, another one of those things where you're just like, I've seen this hundreds of times on t-shirts and whatnot, but you gotta see it in person. It's just an interesting experience. Okay, this is a palace in Milan, and it's actually semi-medieval-esque, and it's like inside of there, in the gardens, is a very modern looking, as you can see, it's a cafe. So I put this picture in here because all around you, you're in the courtyard of an ancient palace, but then you have a very modern cafe inside of it. And I love it. The entire thing is glass, so while you're in there, you can still experience the history. Again, I like art, so there's going to be a lot of art pictures, and this is another painting that I've analyzed, I've studied in school, and now I was living 5 minutes from that, so I got to go see it multiple times, and it was just a fun thing for me to do. And then the last picture, this is Florence, if you recognize it. I'm actually in National Gardens that was right behind my apartment, and I was able to climb to the top of a fort, an old fort that's there, and look over the city. And so this is my backyard, and it was a great time. Okay, so there are only a couple points. I picked out the biggest things in old technology of Italy and new technology that I personally experienced. Here is the Duomo. The Duomo is the main cathedral in any Italian city. So people call this the Duomo, but if you were in Milan, the Duomo is a different building. It's not that building. It's just the biggest and the central cathedral. What makes this Duomo special is its dome, and here are some things. I wrote out some interesting facts, but I decided it'd be better if you watched this little video I found.
You've been challenged to build a great dome. Santa Maria del Fiore, one of the grandest cathedrals ever built. And you have no formal architectural training. No pressure, right? For Filippo Brunelleschi, a goldsmith and clockmaker, it was the opportunity of a lifetime. He considered the challenge carefully. Then proposed a daring plan, using methods that experts don't fully understand even to this day. At the time, domes were often built as semicircles. But the town fathers required that Brunelleschi build an 8-sided dome that would be even taller and stronger. It would also have no central support system to hold it up during construction. Even worse, the dome's base was an imprecise octagon with no true center. But Brunelleschi had that covered. There would be 2 domes instead of one, an inner and an outer shell, held together by giant brick arches and interlocking rings of stone and wood. The rings would work like hoops on a barrel, keeping the dome from expanding outward. To move heavy loads hundreds of feet up, Brunelleschi designed ingenious new machines, including an ox-driven hoist and massive lifting devices far ahead of their time. So, revolutionary design? Check. Groundbreaking engineering? Check. Can-do attitude? Check. But with no central support system, how would he actually build it? First off, the masonry would have to support itself during construction. To do this, Brunelleschi placed the bricks in a herringbone pattern, which spiraled to the top of the dome, with vertical bricks acting as bookends to hold the others in place. They laid about 1 row a week, giving the mortar time to cure. At this rate, the dome grew at a snail's pace of about a foot a month. But perhaps most puzzling is how he was able to place the bricks with such precision.
Hey,
Many experts agree that he used guide ropes. One theory states that ropes ran from a flower pattern on the work platform that showed exactly where the bricks should go. Another has ropes running from the dome's center, tracing a series of cones that grew smaller as they ascended to the top. Still another suggests a different arrangement of central ropes and wooden templates. However it was done, it worked. The 8 faces of the dome met at the top precisely, just as Brunelleschi had planned. In all, it took 16 years to complete the dome. When he died in 1446, Brunelleschi left behind no sketches and no details as to exactly how he achieved his masterpiece. Today, it remains the largest masonry dome in the world, more than 500 years after it was built.
All right, so the reason I picked that as the focal point of old technology in Italy is because it is one of the main things, the main architectural structures that we studied while we were in Italy. And it's because it has everything from a problem that the cathedral had no dome for over 100 years because they couldn't figure out how to make it support itself. So this man used engineering and different construction methods to build the dome, and he didn't only implement that. He wasn't just the architect. He was the overseer, I guess. He had to make the ox-pulled carts that would lift the material, but he also had to think of sociology. In Italy, they drink a lot of wine, and apparently it was difficult to have workers, hundreds of feet in the air if after their lunch break they get a little too much wine in them. So he made it so that the workers had to drink watered down wine so that they would be more coherent while working, and they also had their lunches on the top so that they didn't have to go all the way down, eat, and then go back up. He was cutting time and waste through that. Okay, so now we're on to the new technology, and this is just in the 2 short portions of Lamborghini. One of my favorite stops on the trip was the Lamborghini Museum and Production Facility. I couldn't really take pictures. I wasn't allowed to take pictures of the production, but I want to tell you, I've been to many production sites, and this was one of the cleanest and most efficient production lines I've ever seen. And everybody was working, and nobody was overworked or underworked. They were just working in perfect sync. Also, there was some innovation there to cut back on waste. This is a concept that we have here, but they would take a cowhide that they would make their seats out of, and they would chop circles around all the defects in it and put it under a scanner, and that computer would see the chalk lines, understand that those are the boundaries, and then map the patterns for the seats and use as much of the height as possible and reduce waste. So I thought that was very cool. They also take time and put effort into everything they make. They say it takes a year once you order your Lamborghini to actually receiving your Lamborghini, because it isn't mass produced. Each one is produced individually, and there were lines of women there that were hand sewing, hand stitching the seats. So that was just an interesting thing. This is a picture of the museum I took, but obviously that's not every car I saw, and it's not the production facility. Okay, while I was there, I had the opportunity to go to the World's Fair that year. The Expo 2015 happened to coincide with the time that I was going to be in Italy, and so through the school, I was able to go to the World's Fair. The theme for the fair was Feeding the Planet, Energy for Life. It embraced technology, innovation, culture, traditions, and creativity, and how they relate to food and diet. So it was kind of assuming a world in the future that can't sustain itself as easily, and finding new ways to grow food, not produce food, but grow it naturally. And so each one had a different stance on it, and because it was about food, you got to eat a lot of food. There were more than one ice cream shop, so you got to stop at, and you could make your own Magnum ice cream bar. So it was just a fun day, and that's it. Any questions? Any questions?
So yeah, question for John is, compared to like American culture food, how was Italy's food?
Well, in Italy, the food, it wasn't you go to McDonald's and you grab food and you get out. It was a daily routine, and you took pride in your food. In fact, sometimes, depending on where you were, the chefs would be upset if you ate the food in the wrong order, because to them it's an art almost. But I mean, it was good food.